All right. Hello. Can you make work? Why is my audio not working? Hello, Yella. Everybody, can you hear me?
Hi, it's Renaye.
Hi, can anybody hear me? Because for some reason, my audio seems to be a problem.
I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? Guys, can you everybody hear and see me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
I can't believe I look this bad on this webinar. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, I've seen that we're all showing our faces.
Yes. So this is just a practice session. We're going to, I'm just waiting for Max. I'm sure he'll join us now. I just wanted to check everybody's speakers here. Gosh, I wanted to ask, I see our General Manager, Thomas Overbeck, has joined us. And I want to ask him if my lighting is correct. Hi, Thomas.
Morning, Heilene. Morning, Rudolph.
Morning,
Hello,
Thomas.
Renaye.
Morning.
Good to see you all. Thanks. And Kim, morning. Thanks for making the time to share this with us, and we look forward to your hard work. Looking good, looking good. Elsu, I think you can move your camera a bit further back. That's friendlier. Looking very fine. Thank you.
Friendly. All right, I'll sit back a bit so that I don't.
There you go. That's nice. Yeah, that's friendly. Okay, good. Okay, guys. So have a good one. I'm going to mute out. I'm going to let you play and hopefully share a lot of wisdom with our guys.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. And
Do well.
everyone, as I said in the email, I'm going to start off with Rudolph. And I'll do the introduction, and for the life of me, I can't remember what I said. I must give you all to talk about, but it's basically, as you know, we're going to talk about e-learning, Rudolph, about what you and CTIA have been doing, and then I'm waiting for Michael as well, and then we're going to go into Max from Lobster Ink. He's going to talk to us about what Lobster Ink is doing, what they offer. And then we're going to Michael Masina, who is a lecturer at SCH at UJ, and just what the university is doing with regards to e-learning and connecting with their students. Then Renaye, it's over to you and what ITSI is doing and what you provide. And finally, Heilene. I meant to phone you, Heilene, and we can maybe quickly talk about this. And Rudolph actually had this question. What about training providers that are not currently accredited with the QCTO, of which there will be a few? How will we, and allowing people to come into this webinar? Good morning. I see the attendees are growing steadily, and we welcome you to this webinar hosted by SA Chefs about e-learning in the culinary sector. It is a very important topic. It is sort of hot on the press of everybody's offerings, what they're learning about it and what they're knowing about it, and how they can improve and reach their students and ensure that learning continues. We are very privileged to have a very distinguished group of panelists with us today. Joining us, we have Chef Rudolph van Wyk. Many of you will know him. He is the academic head for the CTIA school that has a national footprint with a new campus that has recently opened in Mpumalanga. Welcome, Rudolph, and thank you for joining us. Pleasure. With us today is Max. Max Lund is the sales director for Lobster Ink for Africa and the Indian Ocean. Am I right, Max? And
that's correct.
And he's joining us from a platform. You know, Lobster Ink, I think, is well known in our culinary circles. I know Togo-san, Capsicum uses them. So they have a footprint in the culinary sector. And we are very happy that Max can join us to give us some insight onto what they offer, and give you guys, our training providers, our guests and our attendees, some insight. We have Renaye Keus from ITSI, I think I've got it right, I hope so, who is another platform that is made headway into the culinary sector. And I know that a very prestigious school in Pretoria, Capital Hotel School, uses their product for their e-learning, and that and we welcome them into this to talk about what they can offer training providers and you going forward in e-learning. I'm still waiting for Chef Michael Masina, who is the hospitality lecturer at STH at the University of Johannesburg, and hopefully he will join us soon. I want to say welcome to everybody. I see a lot of our usual faces, and our members and our friends have joined us, and I want to welcome you. Thank you very, very much. I've just received a message from Chef Michael. I'm going to assist him now. We're going to start this webinar today talking about e-learning, and I thought there's no better way to kick this off than to ask one of your own training providers sitting in exactly the same boat, in exactly the same storm that all of you are sitting in, and what have they been doing in this last 50 or almost 50 days of lockdown, and how do they foresee themselves going forward into e-learning? So I would like to just tell everybody, you can, at the Q&A function, you can ask questions. We will have a Q&A after all the speakers. And then we're going to go over to Rudolph. As a special treat, before we go to him, I'd like to welcome Ms. Heilene Steenkamp from our National Artisans Moderation Body and the Department of Higher Education. And I think everybody who's joining us today knows who Heilene is and what she does and how incredibly hard she works for all the trades, but for the culinary trade especially. And she has got some information to share with training providers, and I'm going to leave her for last. But welcome, Heilene, and thank you very much to you and to NAMB for joining this webinar today. So I'd like to just acknowledge that as I said, our General Manager, Mr. Thomas Overbeck, has joined us. I see our immediate past President, Chef Stephen Billingham, has joined us. Our Vice President, Chef Kabela Sehone, and if I've missed anyone, I'm incredibly sorry, but we are very honored to have you attend this webinar. So without much further ado, I'm going to start off and give over the podium to Chef Rudolph to take us through a little bit what he has been doing in the last couple of weeks to ensure that his students stay connected, learning and engaging. Thank you very much, Chef Rudolph.
Oh, thank you, Elsie, for the very nice introductions and all that. I just want to start off by saying that the learning platforms I'm going to leave to Max and Renaye to discuss, because they've got some nice products out there. And if you want my views on it, you can always contact me later. I'll ask Elsie to also just release some stuff a little bit afterwards if anyone needs a bit of support. So I'm going to start off by saying overall success rate for online learning in general. And you might think it's very successful or not, but the real stats say that it can be as low as 5% success rate, people actually completing the course. And on average, it's between 5 and 30% when you look at the overall. Now, some places manage above 85%. And I'm going to give you some guidelines and tips that work and what doesn't work for achieving the above 85% success rate. So the first one is buy-in. Now, if you've ever heard of the saying that you only appreciate something that you pay money for, it doesn't mean it applies here. It most definitely applies here, because if you don't buy something, you're not going to end up valuing it. So if a student gets something for free, they're probably not going to think that it's worth anything. The benefit is that most of the students, especially in the private sector, has paid for the course. So buy-in is going to be natural, and there's a natural, how can I say, expectation that the students want to complete the course. And with the guidelines received from the DIET and that, then we should be going online. We need to be going online. We need to carry on. That's the directive we received, and we need to carry on with that. So buy-in works. Well, buy-in is definitely there. Next one, for students, imposing deadlines. Now, as a course, it's online learning isn't let's take all our stuff and throw it on a website and give the students the link. It doesn't work like that. It's not what the students expect. It's not what they signed up for. It's not that they paid for. So scheduling, telling the students what to do on what day, it's important. It's telling them, study these pages on this day, or complete this worksheet, or complete this test, or carry on with it. So scheduling is the next thing. The next thing is scheduling contact, and I'm going to say contact here in abbreviations because obviously physical contact is impossible. But you need to schedule a face or contact with the students, either with a webinar or a Zoom meeting. Even a one-on-one call can mean quite a bit for a student because it shows the lecture involvement, it shows continuous learning, it shows that the academy is actually still busy with the students. Next up is lecturer involvement. Every student likes their lecturer. They're going to tell you the lecturer is a superhero. The lecturer can't just step out of the picture. They need to manage their students on a one-on-one basis and help them on a day-to-day. So those 4 things we found is quite important. Now, some of the challenges that we picked up is, the first one was access. Now, when you look at these beautiful online platforms, each one of them's got an app, each one of them's got a website, blah, 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 blah. But the reality of it is that not all students can access this. So when we started out, we had a look at what was available, what was going to work, because there's beautiful stuff. There's absolutely wonderful material out there. We made it very simple, and some people might judge us for this. We basically used YouTube, WhatsApp, and email. Kept it simple, could reach all the students. 85% of them have successfully submitted materials to us and is continuing on with their studies. So it's worked to this point. Migrating to different platforms at this point is the only option going forward because you need more functionality. But as everyone buys into the pandemic, or doesn't buy into it, but gets used to the pandemic, these platforms will become more accepted and people will commit more resources to it. Next problem was data. Now, everyone's going to tell you data and blah, blah, and data is a big problem and all the students are struggling. The fact of the matter is we're private institutions. We are most likely not going to get free data. And even when we get free data, the students will end up wasting it. And there's a high likelihood of it. So there's some options available where you can talk to the cell providers and they'll give you they'll make or you'll pay for the data that the students use to go to your online platform, and it costs about 160 gig. These things take time to implement, etc. Have a look at what data bundles are available and make a recommendation to the students. For instance, Cell C sells a 50 gig bundle for 500 Rand. That's 10 Rand a gig and it lasts 6 months. Easy access, 50 gigs, it's probably about the same amount of money that they would spend on transport for a couple of weeks. So yes, money is tight, I understand that, but the reality is we need to carry on. When I have a look at the private providers' school fees, it is an insignificant amount for 6 months of training to spend 500 Rand because 50 gigs will last you 6 months. It will be enough for it. So the students can throw that card, but at the end of the day, they need to meet us somewhere in the middle. Next one, that's a challenge, is practicals. My personal recommendation is to not try and have the students do their practicals because they're going to end up buying ingredients, and then the financiers are going to turn around and say to you, but we've paid for these ingredients already, and why must we buy them ourselves? So what we've implemented here instead, and ask Elsie to share the link as well, is to rather incentivize entering competitions. We're doing a competition workshop this week. We've made it public, where one of our lecturers that's completed internationally, she shared her personal experiences and set up a nice, essentially a 2-hour workshop with worksheets. And the final leg of this workshop is to have the students enter the mushroom competition for SA chefs. And all of this we're making available to our students, and we're incentivizing them by giving them hours that we would normally give them when they were on campus, one of our incentive programs. Other factors to consider over here is the submissions. How do you accept submissions from the students? we've standardized here on having the students email it, but you know what, if you've got a phone and WhatsApp, just send me photos of the completed work, and we basically take those JPEGs and make them into a PDF, and we can mark that and give the students feedback on it. Another challenge that you're faced with initially, and this might seem very daunting when you start out here, is content creation, because you need to make content that the students can easily consume. So what they would normally have in class is a lecturer talking about slides and that sort of stuff. There's a lot of free tools available that makes it very easy. A piece of open source free software is called OBS. And if you want now to make a video of your screen with sound recording, just send me an email and I'll help you out there. And this stuff is free. One thing I cannot stress enough is when you're doing recordings or anything like that, invest in good audio equipment. And a 500 Rand headset is 100 times better than standard laptop audio. Like I'm using a recording mic here, as you can see. This one was about 1,500, but it helps. And definitely it helps the product that you're putting out there, because if you record something with bad audio, it's just not worth it. People listen to it to 5 minutes and then they basically lose interest. So spend a bit of money, get a good microphone, especially if you're going to be making a few videos going forward. Now,
sorry,
also,
Rudolph. Sorry, yeah. Rudolph. Where, just for interest's sake, for everybody, where would be the easiest way to find this equipment? For
Take a lot.
Okay, so it's just to make sure that everybody goes to the place that, you know, if Take a Lot's got it, then great.
A USB, before we closed, I ordered about 4 sets of Logitech headphones for $500 a piece, and they're USB. So they've got a good built-in microphone. And equipping your staff with headsets at home, it helps for Zoom meetings, because you've got kids screaming around you. You need to have isolated audio on your ears and a good microphone. It sounds silly, but it makes the experience so much better.
It's a real life problem.
It is a real life problem. So the thing is, even buying those headsets for your staff, I recommend. I know we're at week 7. We should have done this 50 days ago already. But if I haven't done it, do it now. Take a Lot is open. They sell this stuff. This Samsung mic was about 1,500. It comes with a stand and stuff, and it works well, especially if you bring it close and you add a pop filter. You almost start getting that broadcaster. Nobody likes to hear themselves speaking. So if it sounds good, it's tolerable, because if it sounds bad and empty, it just doesn't work. Okay, lastly, motivating learners and staff. Now, the psychological effect of this is known, but it's still neglected, that some of our learners, they need structure. So giving them something to do, keeping them to a structured environment, making sure. One of our lecturers asks every morning, guys, are you here on WhatsApp? And every 20 of them need to say, yes, chef, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. So the thing is, it keeps them a little bit responsible, but it's also to be flexible on a individual basis. I had one student said to me, hi, chef, I'm going home. My assignment submissions might not be on time because I stay in this small little mining town and we don't have cell phone signal at my house. And we'll only have it when we go to the shop. I'm like, understood. I know this is going, but you need to be flexible on an individual basis, but still keep them accountable. You can't just say, okay, fine, don't just sit in assignments, but it's like, okay, what can you do? What do you actually need to complete it? Not to just let them get away with it. Another point that might be neglected, might not, is feedback. Now, all of us know how assessment works. Feedback, critical. You need to give them the class, worksheet, test, whatever, mark that and give them feedback. Because if you don't give them feedback, this loop is not complete, and it doesn't, they feel like they're doing something, but they don't know if what they're doing is worth it, or if it's anyone cares, anyone's looking after it. So we also need to be accountable to ourselves and to them, because if we don't give feedback, it's not going to get anywhere. Our model at CTI is every 2 weeks you get a report. We've sustained that through this period. So every 2 weeks, the students get a report. Even if there's just one assignment added to, you get a new report. And the financiers, I think they've got some time as well, because they would send back and say, this report is worrying to me now. And we say, yes, it's worrying to us as well. This is why we send it to you. Let's sort this out. So it's nice to see when the parents also have that buy-in. But as I said, the success rate, we have about 85, 90% students can still carry on in some form or way, submitting and keeping up with their assignments and their assessments. In some of our classes, it's 100%, which is very comforting. Lastly, a bit of fun. need to make sure that there's at least a bit of joy with this sort of thing. So we had a TikTok competition where they had to make a dish, and we also gave them hours and that sort of thing. And it just, once one student gets involved and no one wants to get involved, and you're basically building a little bit of a following around it. I know the one question you asked me, Elsie, says, what's the future of online learning in our industry? And a lot of this is going to boil down to the client's acceptance of it. Now, we are chefs, we are practical, we work with our hands, we work in kitchens and that sort of thing. So is it ultimately, how well does it relate to what we do on a day-to-day basis? Well, there's definitely a place for it. And we definitely see a way of working with it going forward. It can be a very powerful resource. But I cannot stress, it's not just taking your stuff and dumping it on a website. It is a much more involved process. And if you want to get to that 85% success rate, you need to work it and integrate it into what you do instead of just letting it stand alone.
All right, thank you, Rudolph. That was, that was incredible, and it's really and I think that's, guys, why I started with Rudolph or with CTIA today, is just to say what the realities are of what people are experiencing. Now, what you are experiencing might be completely different, but the one thing that I would like to ask you, Rudolph, is how do you feel the students are reacting to online learning? You spoke about motivation and getting them going, and it's all very important, and especially important for your staff. But sorry, how do you see the students reacting to it? If you look at their assessments, do you see a continuation of what they were using while they were in school? Is it better? Is it worse? Those are all sort of benchmarks, I think, that you as providers can look at and maybe identify troubled individuals that might need a little extra push or a little phone call, some support. And do you find that that you see a difference? How's your students reacting?
If there was a concern or a problem with face-to-face training, the concern and the problem exist on distance. It's consistent throughout. You have one or two students with finite resources that have a problem now, but they're still finding a way to deliver, or there is a blank statement from them, or even their financier to say, we have this problem, can you help us in another way? Or so if the student was serious about the education before, they're serious about it at distance learning. And it's consistent with that. It doesn't change. It's still on an individual basis. In terms of acceptance of it, it's reluctant acceptance, because I think it's reluctant acceptance of this entire situation for us. It's no different than how anyone else is reacting to it.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Excuse me. And I hope everybody found that very informative. I've sure learned a few things. And as Rudolph said, yes, he has sent me links for the mushroom competition training. I will post this webinar, post it on our social media. I will email it to everybody that's received emails. And I would like to welcome next Max Lund from Lobster Ink, who is a company. Max and I have walked a long road. We've known each other for a while. We have had many discussions, and I must say I've been very, very, very fortunate to see their product, the Pro Chef, and see what they can do. Max, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Elsie, and hello to everyone.
I know Max is having some issues. You're having some. There we go.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you very much, Elsie, and thanks to Rudolph for that very interesting presentation. So, yeah, essentially, what Elsie has asked is that I take you through what we currently offer as Lobster Ink, various products that could possibly help culinary and hotel schools now, and then possibly again in the future. So what I'd really like to do is introduce Lobster Ink, who we are and what it is that we do, and most importantly, why it is that we exist. I'd then like to introduce Pro Chef and some of the culinary training that we have produced over the last 2 or 3 years and what we plan to produce in the coming years. And then lastly, give you a little case study of something we've done recently, which is a program that I think is very, very relevant at the moment, which is called Rebound, which I suppose would have a place most certainly within culinary and within hotel schools, but really it's been designed more for the trade. But I think the concept is absolutely more important than that.
Yes,
I'll also
Max,
leave, yeah.
sorry.
And then yes.
Max, I just want to say about that, you say it's more for the trade, but I've had a look at it, and honestly, I think a lot of the providers can get a lot of useful information from that program. It's very exciting.
Fantastic. Well, my and one of my associate Kim's details will be available after this, so that anyone can reach out and find out more about that. But so firstly, introducing why Lobster Ink exists, I think is very important, and we really exist to enable potential in people. At the heart of it, we're a training company. We're a very sort of proud South African started company. Although we're owned by one of the world's largest businesses, Ecolab, we were started in South Africa 15 years ago. We were started by 4 very young, very enthusiastic entrepreneurs, all who studied at Stellenbosch University. And essentially what they wanted to do was they wanted to be able to bridge the gap between people who mainly worked in the African markets, so mainly in South Africa and sort of sub-Saharan Africa, and they really wanted to be able to explain why certain things are done when it comes to working in a hotel, working in a restaurant, working in a kitchen. If people are able to understand why they do a particular thing, it should, if their environment changes, allow them to be able to sort of understand why they are doing something as opposed to what and how. It's very important for them to understand what to do and how to do it. But if they understand why they're doing something, for example, why a white wine glass is smaller than a red wine glass, why a chef's knife is shaped the way it is, why we chop vegetables in, the same size so they can cook the same. I mean, look, as you can see, I'm no chef, but ensuring that people understand why before what and how is super, super important. We started really as a live training company. So the way we started was by going into hotels, restaurants, and lodges around mainly sub-Saharan Africa. And we would start at the very, very basics. We'd start by teaching people how to clean and to set a table, how to open a bottle of wine. On the softer side, which was very, very important, basic guest communication. Why it's so important for personal hygiene. I think today more than ever, it's super, super important to understand and to explain to people why it is so important to wash your hands. In about 2008, we quickly realized that live training, although it still very much has its place, and I need to enforce that live training absolutely has a place in training today. Although we don't offer it anymore, it by no means means that we don't think it's important. We sort of see training as this big bowl full of golf balls. Digital training, for which we provide, is one of those golf balls. So if you were to see an absolutely perfect learning and development or training strategy, it would have a little bit of everything. And I mean, I think particularly within chefing, obviously the practical side is so, so important. But in 2008, we moved over to basically using video. Video is a very effective way to communicate something because you don't have to rely so much on people's ability to be able to read. You don't have to rely on actually being there. So what we were able to do was take all this training that we had, put it onto a big iMac computer, and we were able to leave it at a particular lodge or at a particular hotel so that particular company, first of all, didn't have to pay for us to get there, which, as you all know, is really expensive and will probably only become more expensive. But also, if a particular learner goes through a particular piece of content, whether it's pouring a bottle of wine or whether it's learning about Cabernet Sauvignon, or if it's learning how to chop a particular vegetable. If we're there, it's obviously very easy, but what happens when we leave? And really what we wanted to be able to do was be able to give access to learners so that they can access content anywhere and at any time. In about 2011, we moved over to being a web-based service. Today, we are a cloud-based service, but I suppose the advantage to that is that people can access content from anywhere and at any time. As Rudolph mentioned earlier, one of the issues that we certainly suffer with is in this country, and I think in other African countries too, data is expensive. Relying on people to actually have the tech resource, so if it's an iPad or if it's a phone or a computer, that's another issue. And then obviously connectivity is a huge issue as well. We just understand that the reality is that not everyone has access to those types of resources. However, in a perfect sort of blue sky environment where all of those things come together, there's absolutely no doubt that having a digital aspect to your learning, and as I said earlier, it just needs to be an aspect of it. It doesn't need to be all of it, really can be very, very effective. Today, once again, seeing how important it is that you can push content through to people, whether they're at home or whether they are in another country or whether they're at work, is really, really advantage. Another really, really sort of important thing that you can do through having a digital platform, which we have, is you're able to get data out of it. Data is really important, I suppose, not so much from a learner's direct perspective, but it's more important for a manager or for a corporation, because then you're able to look at a learner group or an individual and you're able to get data out of them to say, okay, these are the areas that that person is strong. These are the areas that that person is weak. And then you can obviously plan accordingly. You can say, well, this particular person might be really strong in area A and really weak in area B. Because he's strong in area A or because she's weak in area B, we can then sort of hopefully do a needs analysis and then gear training to help that person improve and get better in certain areas. And I think before I take up too much time, it would be introducing what we've done, particularly for the culinary sector. A lot of our content is aimed at hotels, resorts, and lodges. So you can imagine that there's a lot of skills and a lot of standards and a lot of sort of brand orientation stuff. So a lot of softer stuff like guest communication, a lot of harder stuff, how to clean certain things. In the culinary space, we partnered with the Culinary Institute of America about 4 years ago. The conversation really started to look at helping them get all of their content into a digital environment or a digital ecosystem, basically taking what they've produced that lives in textbooks and making it into really interesting and really sort of engaging and fun video content. From there, obviously, the next step was to be able to produce it into a full curriculum. So basically get all of professional cookery onto a digital environment. And that's what we've done through Professional Chef One. So Professional Chef One, which is the first piece of content we produced with the Culinary Institute of America. It has 157 lessons. It's got 60 interactive lessons and 20 comprehensive courses that basically would take everyone through what we would call first year culinary school. Again, it's going to form part of a curriculum. It's not going to be the curriculum. This has been designed for people who work in the trade. So really, I suppose, what is central to the type of learning that Lobster Ink produces is in the job training. Again, because we came from a live training background where we used to go into a hotel or a kitchen and spend 10 days with staff, the advantage of that is that you're able to go through a lot of content and you're able to engage with them during that time. One of the disadvantages is that it's a long time in the day. I mean, it can be 8-10 hours a day. It's difficult to track and measure because there's no one actually keeping record of it at the particular time. So what we realized is that what you really want to do in a perfect on-the-job training is to do 5 or 10 minutes a day. And that's really central to our training, is making sure that someone is able to learn a standard or a skill and then hopefully put it into practice, because obviously putting it into practice and being chefs, all of you understand the practical side is super important. You can show me how to make a bechamel sauce. I can write a theory assessment on what a bechamel sauce is and that I know the theory component of it. Cooking a bechamel sauce is completely different. So it's exactly the same with a lot of the things that we train in hospitality, is that making sure that someone can practically do what it is that you've taught them or what you've trained them on is super, super important. So that's why that little 5 or 10 minutes a day is really sort of the learning science behind what we do. And when I mean learning science, yes? Sorry, I thought I had a question. Really,
sorry,
the learning science.
Sorry, Max, I don't know who that was. I'm sorry about that.
It's no problem. So really what the learning science is, and the reason we are able to get away with sort of offering 5 or 10 minutes a day is because we really want our content to be super engaging. We want our platform to be an LXP as opposed to an LMS. By that, I mean a learner experience platform as opposed to a learner management system. When we say experience platform, what we mean is that it's very, very learner rich. So when someone's on there, they only need to be on that particular piece of content for 5 or 10 minutes because it should be so rich and interesting and engaging to them that they shouldn't have to spend much longer than that. And then lastly, what I'd like to do is just introduce the essential rebound training, which I was talking about earlier. And essentially what that is a very short, very compact, and very relevant training program that should help companies who work within the hospitality industry, the quick service restaurant industry, the full service restaurant industry, so the likes of most sort of full service restaurants, and the food retail industry. It's really a very, very short course that should help them refresh, recalibrate, and get back into the industry with having made sure that, one, and this is the most important, their people are safe, and then two, very, very importantly, that their guests are going to be safe, or their customers. So what that particular course really looks at is it looks at what is COVID-19. It looks at the proper way that you should be washing your hands. It looks at what a particular person in service needs to concentrate on during this time, making sure that their front of house area is super, super clean. Within the management side, it introduces how people should be managed at that time. We look at food handler information, and then we obviously look at food service manager stuff as well. So again, if anybody would like that information, they can reach out to either myself or Kim McGregor, and we'd be really, really excited to introduce that to you. So in that, I'd just really like to thank Elsu and her team for setting this up, and good luck to the rest of the presenters.
Max, thank you so very much. Yes, I must be honest, when the Essential Reboot, I got to see it and I went on to look. As you said earlier, it's more for your staff and for the trade. But if you look at our students, you know, they become staff when they go back into workplaces. And having these kinds of information, things that training providers can provide their students prior to going into, excuse me, workplace learning, then, you know, it's just so much better prepares them for what's lying ahead when they get into this the industry.
And Elsu, if I could quickly add to that, just to let everybody know that the Rebound program, it is free for a 90-day period. So we started on the 7th of May and it runs to the 7th of August. So first of all, it's a free program. Second of all, it's a very, very easy program to register for. It literally requires someone going onto a particular URL and entering a validation code. So we would urge anybody who's sort of interested in first of all, seeing our content, but then also sort of experiencing the platform that we have, really to go ahead with it, because this is really an opportunity for us to be able to showcase what it is that we do, and also for you to be able to experience what it is that we do too. So thank you.
It's a great pleasure, and thank you very much. It was very informative, and it's really good that we hear what is available, what is out there, and that the training providers can hear what there is. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Well, up next, everybody, I have Chef Masina from the UJ. He has joined us. And I can't see his video, unfortunately, because he's had some challenges joining as a panelist on that link. So, Chef Masina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, so it's very unfortunate that we can't see your face, but thank you very, very much for joining us today. From a training provider perspective and also from the professional body, it's important for everybody to understand what the universities are doing, how they are managing e-learning. I know you've had meetings regarding this week, and you have as an insight into how the UJ, and especially STH and you in hospitality and culinary as a lecturer, is going to go forward in this time. And once again, I apologize for not being able to show your face, but could you take us through that process of what the university is doing?
Okay, thank you very much. Hope you can hear me. We here at STH, we're looking at quite a lot of options going forward. Remember, we have started with blended learning some years ago, where we mix online, some of the work, put it online, and some of it on face-to-face. But with this pandemic, it has forced us now to go online completely, which is a very unprecedented and very uncomfortable situation for everybody. Okay, I'm getting some, can you hear me, Ansu?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe I can ask from one of the attendees if they can hear you. Are
Loud
the
and clear.
attendees able? Are
We
the
can
attendees?
hear.
Yeah, okay, they can hear me.
Okay, great. Carry on, Chef.
Okay. Yeah. So for us, for this online, we start by focusing and looking at the students. How do they cope with this? How is the environment for them? Remember, for us, some of us, we got so much experience in terms of online because we've been a student of online courses from the university. We look at a couple of things. For an example, how the environment of online the students receive it. First of all, we know that it is hard because you don't have a teacher in front of you who teaches you, where you, if you don't understand, you raise a hand and ask a question. And secondly, we understand that this is very confusing, how now you start to manage your own work, for example, your modules, managing it in terms of like deadlines for submission of assignments, dates for tests, and also the list of dates for your visual classes. And also we are looking at overwhelming. Most lecturers, they post work to you, and then you got this all of a sudden you get so much work that comes boom on 1 week. How do you deal with that? Also looking at the instructions that you're giving to the students. Remember, if you send some work to students, there must be clear and very detailed instructions, how to do the work, how to go about reading and all those things. And also we're looking at the teaching and learning. How do we create a platform, an environment where our teaching is student-centered? We allow the students to use their own experience, and also our teaching is a real-life experience. So remember, we are actually, we admit different students from different backgrounds. So as a lecturer, also you need to understand different backgrounds, because if somebody's coming from rural areas, what are the challenges they're facing? Coming from suburb, what are the challenges they're facing? Also, we're looking at the assessment. How do we make this assessment to be authentic? For an example, our students, how do we prevent students from copying from each other? What kind of assessment we put online for them, and how do we check and how do we follow up? And also, we are lucky here in UJ, we got a system called Blackboard, which actually when we post things, we can track students, we can see how many students they have access, say a particular module, for how long, what they've been doing. We can monitor all those things. And if once we see a student falling onto a great danger, we contact the students, we follow up with the student. But when it comes to practicals, it is one of the area at the moment that is really, really, really a big challenge. As you know, that our courses also carries some practicals, for example, the kitchen, the restaurant, the front of house. So all those things at the moment, we find it very difficult, very challenging. But what we have done is that on the first years, we have now blocked and put the skills that are required for the first year to be able to perform on a minimal requirement. So we are looking, for example, knife skills. We're looking at, for an example, cooking skills in terms of cooking methods, the boiling and all those things. What we ask the students to do is we send them a PowerPoint presentation where we load up also an audio in that PowerPoint. Then we ask the student, for an example, to say, we show a video on how to chop an onion. And from there, we're asking the student to say, in your environment, how would you chop an onion? Then they take a video and they send it to us. So that also gives us a more room to play about what things that we can do. When it comes to the second years, we give them a cooking challenge. They cook. Whatever they cook in their houses, they post videos and then they send to us. We normally say to them, this week we are talking about baking a bread. Give us your challenges. How can you bake bread in your environment? Some people, they use like a whole oven where they dig on the ground, they put some fire on top. There's different ways they come with it. Some of them, they don't participate. Sometimes they take time to participate. When it comes to the third years, we ask them to simulate. For example, set up a conference for so many people. What is it that you need to do? All those things. And in all these things, we send them rubrics, how we are going to assess them. Then when it comes to this real life situation, it is still a little bit of a challenge because we also don't want to actually to leave other students behind in terms of maybe they don't have an access. For an example, we also got students that stays at rest where they don't have most of these facilities or anything that they cook because of the rest. You know, at the moment there's lockdown, there's all those things. So it is a little bit challenge, but we are working on it. We are working on a way forward on how we are going to make this better. So as myself, as a chairperson of teaching and learning at STH, we are having every week, we're having a meeting that we are dealing with the challenges online and how we can make this very better for the students going forward. And thank you.
Thank you, Chef. I've got a question. Sorry, I don't know, my voice is going. I've got a question on your assessments. And maybe you can just tell us a short example of how, if you say you tell them how you're going to assess them, what are the general things that you say to the students about assessment?
Okay, for an example, our assessments, we are using what we call a Bloom's taxonomy, where we judge the levels of assessment, the challenges and how the assessment should be. For an example, I will ask a student to make, to chop an onion, okay? So in the rubric, for an example, I will look at the originality. Is it original or is it being copied or it's coming from somewhere else? If, for an example, you are chopping, you are saying to me, this is it's fine chopping, originated from this and this, then it's fine. Then we're also looking for an example, what types of board they are using, how do they observe hygiene, and all those things. That's how we put that on the first year. But when it goes up to, for an example, on your third level, for an example, where you have to simulate doing a function, let's say you are doing a wedding, okay? Then you have to give us, for an example, how would you go about planning for a wedding in the township? How you're gonna go about planning a wedding in the suburb, because all these areas, they are very different. But that's where we mark, for example, did you do marketing? Did you do your invites? Did you do your costings? All those things, that's where the rubric comes into play. Whatever dish you are making is none of a big concern for us. But we also, when it comes to the menu, we will look at your combination. How do you combine your dishes? Did you manage to put this and this and this and this? And how do we mark that? Do you have a starter? Do you have a main course? Do you have a dessert? Or remember, if we're talking about the real life situation, in my culture as a Swazi, it might be different from somebody that come from KZN in their functions, whatever they do. So all those things, we recognize them when we draft this rubric in terms of marking for the students.
That's incredible, and I think very valuable, Chef. The final question I've got, and this is something I've been getting from providers, and it's not an unfair question. How have you or the university had any pushback from students regarding the cost of ingredients if they have to cook something, or the cost of data, or the devices that they use? You know, the universities work on a different level than we do, but has there been any sort of communication around that the students go, you know, I've paid for my training and now I've got to buy all these added things, which I'm sure is something that comes up in our private training providers often. Have you experienced any of that with your university students?
At the beginning, yes. But remember, the university has now provided all the students with 30 gig a month. So which means when it comes to in terms of data, it's not a big challenge. The only thing that is happening is that on our side as lecturers, we're managing the work that we put up to the students so that they don't actually finish up all those data. And also when we put up the work to the students, we check also how much data you will need to download so many slides, how many data you will need to record a 2 minutes or 1 minute video. All those things, we check them before we send the work out. Then when it comes to devices, the university has said all students that they need computers or iPads and everything, they can contact the university. The university can borrow them so that they can return them end of the year. So what happens is like you borrow a laptop, they bill it into your account. When you bring it back, they refund your money. Also, the NSFAS students, the Minister of Higher Education promised that he will actually give all the NSFAS students devices. So we don't know how long that will take. But at the moment, we're trying to use whatever the students they have. If they do have a cell phone, they use their cell phones so that we can carry on with the way. When it comes to ingredients, we do not ask the students to do a video of cooking of something that they are not eating in the house. If we're talking about the real life situation, if at home they are cooking mhodu, the students, they will actually tell us how to cook mhodu, how they go about it, how they chop the ingredients, how they cut the ingredients that goes in there. That will form part of the assessment. We do not ask them to do something that it's not actually on what they are doing every day. So that's where maybe we get away with the ingredients. It might not fit exactly on what we're looking for, but when you look in the first years, we're looking for skills. Second year, we look for skills. Because for us, we are not a chefing school, but we are a management school, which we need them to have the basic knowledge in terms of cooking, in terms of making bread, that will assist them to do costing. And we all, end of the day, we also ask them, for an example, please cost us the dish. Tell us how much it costs so that we can see that they understand the principle of costing. That's all what we do.
Thank you, Chef. Sure. That was incredible. I cannot thank you enough. And just hearing the other training providers, just hearing that, you know, sometimes we feel we're all in this not together, you know, that the universities have more, have better, but the problems that are faced by students across the culinary and hospitality sector is very similar to, regardless if you're at a private training provider, a university, or the TVETs. And I'm sure a lot of the training providers and guests that have joined us today has found that very, very informative. I cannot thank you enough, Chef Michael. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And once again, sorry about that link, everybody. I would have liked to see in your face. Thank you, Chef. So
okay, that's
thank you. And next up, I have a company, the ITSI, as I mentioned, Renaye Keus from that platform or digital learning, and that I subsequently learned she also works. ITSI works with the University of Johannesburg. Am I right, Renaye?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay, and this ties in really, really nicely. And it was it was serendipitous, I think, that you came, because it was a bit of a happy accident that it tied in so beautifully. And you are going to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and how you are assisting the UJ and places like Capital in digital and e-learning. Thank you, Renaye.
Thank you, Alsu. So thank you, everybody. And I'm not going to pretend to be a chef or understand half of what you talk about. So a bechamel sauce for me would be really a recipe book, and we'd be lucky if we got it right. But from an educational point of view, ITSI is a solution that allows the ordinary educator to teach in digital ways. We do not say that technology replaces the teacher, and it's something that Rudolph said. The teacher is always central to whatever we believe needs to be done. So what we do is you need to adjust some of your teaching styles when you're actually using digital. So ITSI provides a patent software service that simplifies teaching and learning with technology by employing an educator-centric approach. So it's an interactive way to collaborate. Your educator can create and share learning paths. They can add additional content. There's a self-marking assessment, as well as intervention plans that individuals need for individual learners. The big thing with this is it is online, offline solution. So the student will go on, they will download, and then they can work offline with all the material that has been put into their content. So what we do is we enable you to organize, to manage, and distribute digital content from one central hub. So the ITSI platform streamlines that learning process. It eliminates fragmentation by consolidating everything into one place. We've learned over the years that a lot of students are saying, but I've got to go to this portal and I've got to go to that portal and I've got to go to another portal. Whereas here, everything is in one place. So I go in and everything is there for me to learn, whether it's my ebook, whether it's my study material. It can even be the lecturer's own material. And you go in there and it is all in one place. What the platform allows you to do is to provide students with a variety of content, such as videos, PDFs, audio clips, and URLs. Obviously, if you put a URL in, the student needs data to be able to go onto the URL. But if they've been in a Wi-Fi environment or they have data and they've downloaded a video, they can watch that video over and over and over again without having to go back onto their data to watch it. They can do their assessments offline. When they go on, it gets uploaded onto the server, and the lecturer can then have a look at that material. We have an integrated diary, which keeps students informed about campus activities, assignments, due dates. So we are not an LMS, but we have some pieces of LMS. If you do have an LMS as an institution, we can link with that LMS. Like we heard that at UJ they have Blackboard. Our My Book app is integrated into the LMS. So then the student also doesn't have to leave the environment. It is a seamless integration. They use the same password, they use the same usernames, and it links them automatically. So we also have the tests that you can have self-marking. So they really are formative assessment. They're not summative assessment. Those tests you can put in. You can get marking immediately. So it's multiple choice. It's match the words. It's fill in the blanks. There is a paragraph section which you can put in. Obviously, that is not self-marked. That will come to the lecturer. But the nice thing about it, when you put a paragraph in, all your students' information comes in one place, so you can mark them one after the other, and those marks automatically get put back into the student's assessment. From doing that, you can see how your students are progressing. So you can see, do they understand? If you want to do a test before the chapter, you can do that to see what they understand. You can do one afterwards. You can do it as a single test, which only have one try, which some of our institutions use, and they then use that as a test mark. Or you can let students try it over and over and over and again. You can put pictures in. You can also put answers in if you want to. So if you want your students to do a test, but you want them to self-evaluate, they can go back and see what the answer should be. There's also, you can address the analytics, shows you when a student is online, can show you how much time they've spent in the book, can tell you what they've highlighted, because in the app, the student can highlight themselves, they can make notes, they can create flashcards. You as the lecturer can do the same content. You can see when the student has opened it, how many times they've opened it, how many resources they've looked at, and you can also look at that according to your class average. The students can see their results. You as the educator can see the results of your entire class, or if you're a head of department, you can see your whole institution. So you can divide it, but you can also see what your lecturers are doing. So the lecturers don't get away with not being able to use the system. You can see how they've integrated with their student, what content they've put in, how much content they've put in, and that content can be organized per subject, per class, and you can even go down per student. So if you see a student that is struggling, you can actually send them individual material without anybody knowing that that student has got extra material, or even the student knowing that they have got extra material. If you have students that come in during the year, so you have 6-month courses or 3-month courses, you can also assign books, and you can bring students in halfway through the year. So the students can also make their own summaries. So for study purposes, they can make their summaries. They can then save those into PDF, and they can then study from them summaries. Because a lot of the students are saying, yes, but I like paper. I like to highlight. I like to make notes. I like you can still do that in your ebook and then print that summary and study from that summary, or just use it as a PDF. What the nice thing is, and one of the things that Rudolph spoke about is the fact that you need to identify students timeously to ensure that you know where they are and if they're struggling. So we have user analytics in the background, and those user analytics will show you and help you to look at where your students are and be able to say, all right, so this student hasn't been online for 3 weeks or hasn't had any interaction, or maybe they just haven't been in a place where they can upload the data. So yes, then you need a telephone call, but they can then say, yes, but I have been on, but I haven't got data. As soon as they've got data, it will upload, and it will be, the student never will lose their information as long as they have uploaded their data. We say every 7 days they should come online. But in these cases, and this time we find students are coming on in the morning and in the afternoon, you can then see quite easily where your student is and how much they have done. So in a traditional environment, it's easy to kind of see the students and they're sitting in front of you and they give you an assignment. Our assignments can be uploaded. We link to OneNote or Google. So you can upload it into a Google document. You can upload photographs. We're not at this point, is something that I've heard coming through. We're not linked with WhatsApp at this point in time. Everything is done either in Google or on OneNote. So we do have what we call a classroom activity monitor. The student does have to be online in that case. But if you're doing a Zoom meeting and you want your students to go in and you want them to be in the app, because you can actually teach from the app, you can actually see whether they are online or not. Now, students are very clever and they think, okay, so I'll go online and you'll see my face, and then I'll go onto Facebook. As soon as they go onto Facebook, sorry, hey, move. Sorry, my dogs are now deciding they need to play.
It's part of lockdown. We all have those issues. Don't worry about it.
So what happens is, in that classroom monitor, you can actually see that the student has left the app and they are not there. They're logged in, but they're not there. So you have a little green man, a little red man, and a little orange man. Little red man means that you're not there at all. Your orange man means you were there, but you've left. And the green man says you are actively engaging in the material in the classroom. So it's a really nice way to see whether your students are actually attending or just putting the Zoom on and walking away, because you don't know when that happens. So that is a really nice part to it. But as I say, they have to be online to be able to do that. Very little data, but they have to be there. As part of what we do in ITSI, if you take the solution, we train you. We train you how to use the solution. We give you an overview of 21st century teaching and how to use digital in teaching. We don't believe that we can just drop and run, because it is a different way of learning. And our passion really is to work closely with the client to deliver the best possible solution for their needs, because everybody's different. Some people need a very small solution, other needs the full solution, like, for instance, a capital hotel school, where they use the solution for their learning, for their marking, for everything. So it depends on how you want to look at that. We provide advice of how to incorporate it into your system and what blended learning approach is. And we also help to manage the adoption of that technology, to focus on the hardware, the mobile devices, and the platform. We don't provide the mobile devices, but we can assist you on how to do that. And that really is me in a nutshell.
Wow, that is quite a nutshell. And thank you so much. It is actually, and I have to confess, I think me and some of the providers, Renaye and everybody else, this is new territory for us, and we don't know really what the pitfalls, what the pros and the cons, and what we're going to face in the future. And I think today, thank you so much, just giving us, you from ITSI and Lobster Ink, Max from Lobster Ink, giving people the idea of what is out there, how it can be used, how they can benefit from companies like yourselves, and how you really take the unknown or the mystery out of e-learning And it's no longer a dark ghost. We can all face it, and we'll all face it together. I thank you, Renaye. Thank you very much for joining us.
Can I just add something to? Can I just add something to that? I think one of the big things is many institutions just, you know, you see something in a EPUB or a PDF, it's very flat and it's very boring. And how do you make that exciting? It's by enhancing that material. So you can use the study guides that you've developed. You don't have to really change those, but you need to enhance them because you've got to make it exciting for the students. So an example I used in a meeting the other day, and as I say, I do that, is knife skills. So you talk about knife skills, and then you can put a video in there, and they can watch that video, and they can actually relate to what does it actually look like. Otherwise, e-learning becomes very flat, very boring, and it's why should I do this?
Absolutely. And I think everybody has gotten something from that. A lot, I know for myself, and we've had a discussion earlier today about platforms and using it from the South African Chefs Association and what we want to do from an e-learning platform. I'd like to thank you, Renaye. Our last panelist, I'm just checking to make sure that I haven't missed anybody, is a good friend and a very big supporter of our industry from a national regulator base, and that is Heilene Steenkamp, who, like I said when I introduced her, I'm leaving her for last. And I asked Heilene to join us today for various reasons. I know a lot of you have received correspondence with regards to training in the last week and over the weekend, but also I thought it'd be really interesting to know what the other trades are doing in this time. And, you know, we are a new trade. Chefs are a brand new trade. You know, we're still finding our feet. And we have trades in our countries like plumbers and electricians and all those that have been around forever. They are huge. They have massive influence. And I would like to see what they're doing or hear what they're doing. And that's why I asked Heilene to join us. So Heilene, thank you very, very much for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you, Elsie.
So I'm going to leave it over to you, and you're going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in the training space, what's happening with the other trades, and what we can look forward to in the near and the distant future for trades. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see me?
I can see you and I can hear you.
Okay,
Maybe
fantastic.
just, there we go. You need to just move your camera down so I can see your whole face. There,
okay.
Perfect, perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. In terms of the hard trades, as we call them, they are not ready for e-learning. They don't do e-learning. Their programs are not written for e-learning. They do face-to-face, like the last 70 years. So when this e-learning thing came about overnight, they couldn't just go on to e-learning. I mean, it's not possible to go from 0 to 100 in 10 days. So they are stuck. They have now started to look at e-learning platforms, but there are very, very few that, there's about 1 or 2 that said they are almost ready to go on to e-learning. So, you know, we can't stop them to do the traditional way of learning, but we would prefer them to go the e-learning route due to the fact, you know, that COVID is at this stage, you know, the hype of the moment, you know, social distancing, etc. But they are not ready. So either we say to them, you don't train at all, which we can't, or we live with it. Okay, because the minister made that announcement to say, you know, skills development providers must make themselves ready in May and June to start operating.
Sorry, Heilene, can I interrupt? So, and I know we've discussed this. Does that mean that chef schools that are accredited by the QCTO can now start training again?
Yes.
It's, I think, for many, the best news ever, because I know everybody's been getting back. Are there implications, say, for schools that are not accredited by QCTO? Do they fall under another, or can they also start?
Unfortunately, if you have not been accredited before, you cannot. And QCTO at this stage are also not accrediting new providers due to the fact that NAMB and QCTO cannot travel, over provincial borders. There is the COVID thing of, moving into spaces that we are not familiar with. So all those things made QCTO say, because NAMB cannot go, QCTO cannot go, so there's no way to see what that provider sends us on paper.
Okay.
So no new skills development providers, no new trade test centers for about 6 to 12 months. But they will give us, they will keep us in the loop. I mean, it will also depend on, the government. As the levels go down and the country opens up, we can be in level 3 tomorrow and on level 2 on Friday. So then everything will change again. But for now, it's no. But it can change overnight.
Thank you, Heilene. I think it's really important tonight, and that's why I wanted everybody to hear, or the people that have joined us, that, as far as what I understand, I mean, I spoke to Adele from Police and a few of the other schools, obviously Rudolph and the UJ. They are further ahead in e-learning than what some of the other trades were, and it's maybe not a good thing, but it means that as culinary students and providers, you are at the forefront. You are blazing a new trail of e-learning and how to make this happen for trades in the future, or hearing about how long it will be before new providers can be accredited. So, Heilene, is there anything else you would like to tell our providers around the opening of SDPs, trade test centers, or any news from any of the other regulators?
Okay. What I can say is a SDP and a trade test center is, first of all, a business. So you need to comply with Annexure E of the Disaster Management Act. In other words, you must tick all the boxes. And there's a whole list that you guys must have a look at and comply with. That's number one. Number two is you need to comply with the criteria and guidelines for a trade test center and the skills development provider. The moment you do that, and you've got your essential services CIPC document, you can train, and if you have everything, you can open tomorrow. So the only problem at this stage that all of you, not all of you, but some of you will have, is you have learners coming from other provinces. And I do not have an answer yet on the permits that they need, but we are trying very hard to sort that out. Which permit do they need? What letters do they need? That's the first thing. And the second thing is some of you have residences for your learners. Now, at this stage, the minister is very, very clear on no residences. Learners cannot go back to residences. So please comply with that for the moment. You know, that can also change overnight, but for now, no residences. So that is the major thing that I just want to leave with you. The other thing that we will get to is workplaces. Now, we do know the industry is still closed. And we don't know how long it's going to be closed. And once it opens, we don't know who will be left. So there's a lot of students that will not be able to go to the workplace. Now, in that case, we will have to start thinking creatively. How are we going to give that learner a workplace experience without putting them in the workplace? Because there won't be a workplace. Now, in terms of those things, I always say logic needs to prevail. And how close can we get that learner to a workplace environment? Now, a chef learner is in a kitchen every day anyway. And if they are in the workplace, they are in a kitchen. So what you can do, and we will have to have those conversations with the QCT and the CETA at some stage, is you will have to improvise or create a restaurant setting or a hotel setting at your school. You know, you will open up your kitchen for people to come and taste your food. You know, experience the learners as in a restaurant setting. You know, maybe have competitions. You know, so there's a lot of ways around this. Yeah, it is, you know, the most wonderful to put them in the workplace, but, you know, we will find maybe that all learners will go to the workplace, but for very short periods. You know, they will not have their workplace experience as was written in the curriculum. You know, we will, you know, instead of 6 months, they will go for 3 weeks. And the rest will have to be made up of simulated, if you want to call it that. But the colleges will have to come up with another way to make sure that the learner get the experience of a workplace, but not being in the workplace. So we must start thinking of that. For now, you know, I think we need to focus on, you know, getting them back on, you know, on learning, being it e-learning, or if you are not 100% ready for e-learning, blended learning. I think in the end, even after COVID and everything, and we are back to the new normal, blended learning will be the way to go anyway. And at some stage, all the other trades and any other type of learning will be blended learning, because that is the way to go. So I'm glad that the chefs are so far. I'm glad that they're looking at different platforms, different ways, methodologies to go into that direction. So please go ahead, don't stop now. But I foresee that your way of blended learning is the way to go.
All right, thank you, Heilene.
So yeah.
Thank you very much. We've received quite a bit of, there's about 4 questions and a few in the chat line over here. So yeah, I'll do chat quickly first. Johan from Guban. May an SDP opened or reopened to provide contact training? Yes. The answer is if you run the trade qualification, if you teach artisans, then you may. Jackie, I think Heilene answered your question regarding permits, that we're working on it. There's one from Haley Jenkins over here. If you run a CAFCETA registered with QCTO accredited program, can you open it? I don't know. I think that the memo we received was only aimed at artisan STPs. Heilene, am I correct or incorrect?
The memo from us is artisan programs, but the minister said skills programs. So it's any program. So anything that falls under the CETA.
Okay. So QCTO,
so anything that falls under the CETA or falls under QCTO, you know, it's trades and occupations.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the one thing. So it's all programs that is skills related, but just remember, everything must have the social distancing, the disinfections, so even Johan, if you start your face-to-face learning, the social distancing, your classes, I don't know how many he has in a class, but it might mean that he has to split his classes in half or whatever the case might be. So guys, you need to look at that. You must remember that you can only bring back 30% of your staff. So all those things that is in the Disaster Management Act, Annexure E, you need to look at, because the Department of Labor is going around. They have closed businesses in the last week or so, many businesses. They are quite, they like to close businesses, so they look for every little thing that is wrong. So you must be ready, for every little thing. Your paperwork needs to be done, your plans need to be there. You don't necessarily have to send your plans to NAMB, but it needs to be on file. If the Department of Labor walks in there, you must have your file ready and say, here you go. We have been sanitized, here's the invoice, or whatever the case might be, but you must have everything.
Okay. A lot of the questions, and I know Heilene can see them, everyone about confirmation about this. That memo was sent out, and Heilene and I will discuss it. Johan, again, the point about that memo that was discussed about trade test centers, it is addressed to skills development providers as well. And therefore the understanding and the confirmation was received by Heilene this morning from that SDPs are allowed to open. I will speak to Heilene and post this webinar. I will ask her to put something together with regards to the SDPs, and I will make sure that that is sent out to everyone. Then work permits. Heilene, who will be responsible for issuing the work permits, and where do you apply for a permit? What category must you use? At this point, I am not sure, and Heilene mentioned that she was trying to still work out the permit issue, as well as your students' permits for them. So Heilene, do you know, have you got an answer for any of these questions?
I've been on the CIPC website yesterday to see how we can work around this. But if you are on the CIPC website, there are no related field even to training or hospitality, or the nearest you get is, and I'm going to read it to you now, is deliveries for food services. Now, that is not what you do. But if that is the way to get you permits, then that is the way to get you permits. But that is the closest currently on the system. No, I know that's not what you guys are doing, but if that is the way to get you an essential service CIPC document,
could we maybe could the training providers that are aiming to open perhaps get some form of communication from yourself, from Joey, or from NAMB, or the QCTO, or DHEAD, possibly, to say that this is where you register under SIPS, because we don't want our training providers to open and receive this information, and then the police comes to their door and shuts them down. So
you see, that is
that's what
that is why I want to make triple sure. I want to speak to the right people, because in the level 4 or the Disaster Management Act regulations pertaining to level 4, where that annexure E is in, there is a sub-regulation that refers to education. But there it says there are specific documents, but they don't stipulate which documents. So I'm trying with the QCTO, the department, so I'm trying to get the right documents, the right information, but I mean, everybody is still not at work. The department, nobody is closed, but nobody is fully functional. So it's very, very difficult to say, okay, I'm quickly phoning that one, because that one can be in the shop. So just give me a day or so. I will get back to you guys, because it's not only you guys that ask. It's all the other trades as well. And for some of the trades, we can get away. There are a line and a category on the essential services permits that they can go for, but some just aren't.
All right,
so
thank
just
you.
A day or so.
All right, so thank you, everybody. So your questions will be answered. I invite everybody, if they're pleased, to send those to me via email. My email address is alsu@sachefs.co.za, and if you have any questions, so that we can make sure we cover all our bases, and I know Heilene is trying to sort out these permits. This is an opportune time, I think, for all providers to now get their contact learning requirements ready, as well as the e-learning. And I'd like to thank once again all our panelists today. I think I wanted to end with where we're going forward, but I think all the panelists today highlighted the importance of expanding our e-learning offering. And if anybody has a question for the panelists, now would be a great time. The other questions, everyone, I will answer, and I will get back to you on that. Thank you very, very much to all the panelists that are still with us. Thank you very much for joining us. I thought it was an incredibly valuable webinar, and thank you to all of you who attended. If you have any questions, like I said, please do not hesitate to contact SA Chefs and contact me. And your professional body is working really hard with all these regulators to make sure that we can return to the new normal as quickly as possible. Thank you very much to all the presenters and panelists. Thank you very much. I'm going to end this day, and I hope you have received some good news. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Heilene.
Thank you.
There's somebody just asked us when a video will be available. It will be on our Facebook page, everyone. Sorry. We will post, once the video is uploaded, we will post it on the South African Chefs Association Facebook page. So contact details for all the panelists and their companies will also be put there. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next webinar. Have a good week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.